All right, we're live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Self-Publishing Insiders. I'm Jim Azevedo, Corporate Communications for Draft to Digital. And today it is my distinct pleasure, privilege, and honor to welcome Erik Bursch. Erik is the Senior Vice President of Consumer Product and Engineering at Gannett, USA Today. Welcome, Erik.
Jim, thanks for having me.
Oh, so glad you can make it. I know you're a busy guy. There's a lot happening over there. So, of course, today we're here to talk about the return of USA Today's best-selling book list. Um, I was reading through some of the history of the book list, and what's really caught my attention, Erik, was that the book list is the longest journalistic project at USA Today. It's been running since 1993. So clearly it's had some success. It's served the readers. Can you talk a little bit about why the decision was made to put the list on hiatus and give it a refresh? It went on hiatus back in December of 2022. Can you give us some indication of what led to that decision?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. And let me just spend maybe a minute or so talking about Gannett as a whole. So Gannett
Absolutely.
we own are responsible for over 200 properties inside the United States. USA Today being our national brand, and we have a lot of big sort of regional brands: Detroit Free Press, Arizona Republic, Indy Star, etc. Also, a lot of smaller papers. So we are in a massive amount of communities across the U.S. and USA Today has had a lot of history in doing. We hear about data projects all the time now, right? And
Yep.
it's sort of obviously with all the AI boom, you need data to drive AI products, but data products and it has really exploded in the last couple of years. This is our longest running data product, right? If you think about it, we were collecting data, book sale data and bringing that together and presenting that for several years now. And the way it was sort of brought together in the past before the hiatus was, we received all the data points, and there was a lot of manual actions in that sort of process of collecting and organizing, ranking, etc., to be able to present that out every week. And there was a pullback in some of the resources that our content and editorial teams had at their disposal, during that time frame right before we went on hiatus, and really with the reduced capacity of some resources from the editorial side, and that it was driven from a lot of manual touch points. We had to make the decision at that point to put it on hiatus. I'm a passionate book reader. I've loved books my whole life, and a lot of us in the product organization at Gannett and USA Today, we work closely with our content organization. We wanted to find a way to bring this forward. And when you're talking about data, there's ways to automate data, coming forward. All of our sources at that time were sort of giving us different types of formats, that we were receiving from a data file. So we really had to normalize that and bring that together and create an engine that could bring in our current set of sources at the time, but also we wanted to expand out our number of sources and be adding every week if we needed to. We really want to take in as many sources as possible, and our engine that we built, it did take us obviously a couple months to get there, but the engine that we built is really a system that is fully automated and is an ability to take in as many sources as we can get our hands on.
Yeah, it was not a small endeavor. And your background is on the technology side, am I right? And you've been with Gannett since 2010. You've been there longer than I've been at Smashboard. I think you started in 2010, if I read that correctly. And
as I like to say, I've been there for a couple of years, from that side of things, and seen a lot of change. But even though I'm on the engineering side, and not to go too deep on engineering, but myself and a lot of my leads and key resources inside of my department, we wear a product hat even though we're engineers, and there's a lot of things that I think that that have come up out of the engineering resources about products that have been massive wins for us, going forward. So I challenge my folks to think like product folks every day, and and a lot of the passion projects that we have come forward. Books is one of them. We've done a lot of things around sports and sports data, which is sports has always been a USA Today sort of staple. We have a lot of sports fans in our engineering department, and really, leading some product efforts from that side has been some wins. So, I've been there for a couple of years, seen a lot of change, but this was a very fun effort for us to do, and certainly a lot of people thought when it went on hiatus that it was not coming back, and we heard a lot of it. We heard a lot of that, and we knew it was coming. We couldn't talk about it too much, but it was a great relaunch. We had a lot of visibility from a press standpoint on relaunch, and that was good to see that excitement.
Oh yeah, the indie community, we were all about it. There was a lot of authors out there. I'm not going to try to speak for all you guys out there, but there were a lot of authors out there who were thinking, hiatus, that equals it's going away, it's gone. And so when the announcement was made that, hey, we're back, there was like a collective cheer that went out. Did you have a sense that it was going to take a few months? Did you think it was going to take longer? Because to me, it seemed like it came back quicker than I thought it was going to come back.
Well, we had started working on it just before the hiatus, and we felt we wanted. I sort of set the goal of trying to deliver it before the heavy summer reading season. We really wanted to get this out there, and we sort of set that late June goal internally. That was a pretty big stretch goal for us. And even though it launched in late June, we were still getting some of the pieces of the automation together the coming weeks after that. But I think it launched at the right time. I think it was important to get out there ahead of the summer reading schedule. Obviously we'd love to have it out sooner than that, but it was not a small lift for us to deliver. But I'm glad it's out there, and glad we're expanding all of our data points every week that we have it out there.
Well, we're glad you're back. When a reader's out there, when they go out and they check out the book list and they check out the methodology of the book list, right there on the headline of that page at USA Today's on USA Today's website, the headline says it's the people's book list, which I think is fantastic. But can you give us a sense of what that means to USA Today, the staff, the journalists, and yourself?
Yeah, really not to talk about other book lists that are not USA Today, but I think with ours, we do not add any bias to it at all. The list is driven completely from data, and we believe that we are adding, as I mentioned earlier, we're adding sources every week to bring in that data point and run our algorithms against it. I think when you talk about people's lists, I think we feel that without any sort of editorial oversight and the fact that it's driven by data, it's the people that is buying the books and in any format that they're buying in them, and we're just reporting on what people are buying without that oversight that goes live. There's literally, where we have it now, the sources come in, we do some validation checks from an automated standpoint, and then it's published out in an automated format. There's not a manual action. There's not somebody that says, this book, I think this book is great, it should be higher than it is, right? Or why is this book on there? We have to, this shouldn't be on there. And
my cousin.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that.
No, that's good. Yeah. So I think no algorithm is perfect, right? And I think if any of you have ever dealt in sort of machine learning or otherwise, it's always an ever-changing training side of things from an algorithm, and we're continuing to do small tweaks here and there as we see things pop up from a data perspective. But I think that I love the fact that we're adding sources all the time to make this an even more complete list than we had previously.
Yeah, and it sounds like it would be. Frankly, it would be impossible to do this manually. Before we went live, you were talking about just how much larger the source pool is for gathering this data. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there was a limit of resource time and otherwise that went in, and we had and we call out by name some of the sort of long-term data sources that we've had. A lot of
Yep.
sort of big box partners of ours that provide data to us, and there wasn't really an ability to take on a ton of more sources because of the manual nature. We're just over 7x the amount of sources that we're including now than where we we were from
Okay.
before hiatus. So I think that just speaks to the volume of us when we say people. We're really trying to gather in all these different sources and making sure that we have the widest spectrum of gathering the different types of data from books sold, et cetera, across across our data sources. I don't think a week's gone by where we haven't got a request or somebody asking us, for to be added to be included inside the data sources list. I think there is an ability for us to expand out. We have the best selling lists. I think there's also aspects for us to look at, maybe an ebook list, maybe an indie authors list, et cetera, to be able to expand out the different types of lists to surface up more of the different types of data that we're getting that might not make the top 150 per se, but are really starting to grow in certain areas of our of the spectrum of data.
I'm smiling because I can imagine by saying that you're considering breaking out an indie author bestseller list or an indie ebooks bestseller list. I can imagine a lot of eyebrows went up and the excitement level just raised about 10x on our side. Um, so that's a ton of data. The Smashboard Store. So the Smashboard Store is a contributor, and our store alone has a list of. I think we give you just tens of thousands of book sales every week, and that's just one store. Okay.
And I think it's one thing I do want to call out with the sources, right?
Sure.
And some of your audience might have seen this during when we relaunched, right? So
Yep.
we had a really, I talked about earlier, Gannett being in over 200 communities across the U.S. And I personally believe that bookstores, especially independent bookstores, are really the heartbeat of a lot of communities in a way. They bring people together in ways that other things in the community don't bring people together, right? And we made a very concerted effort about bringing forward our connection to the independent bookstores. Every week, we're publishing an article about an independent bookstore across the U.S. We have led with the first sort of option for folks to purchase a book is led with bookshop.org.
Yeah, we
Certainly,
love that.
they're able
Fans.
to buy through other sources, right? And that are there, but we're leading with that connection, and we felt that was an important mission for us as we talk about one of our mission statements as a company is to continue to be there for our communities, and we felt that was such an important connective tissue during this relaunch. That's something. So the list didn't just come back as is. The list came back
No.
with a much higher sort of integration there with independent bookstores.
Yeah, that was really exciting when I read about the new partnership with bookshop.org. We're big fans. We're big fans of Andy Hunter and his team, and what they're trying to do out there with indie bookstores and to keep the eye on the community and give back to communities out there across the nation and beyond. Can you talk about how that partnership? I don't know how deep into the weeds you can go with that, but how that partnership came together. It's super interesting how there's just so much thought behind the revamping of the list. It's not just about data, it's about this whole new forward-looking indie community movement in a way.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things started to happen,
All right.
in sort of sort of together, right? I was certainly aware of Bookshop, and I had a connection into a bookstore in just outside of St. Louis called Novel Neighbor,
Okay.
and was
Yes.
a follower of them, in social channels, just because I thought their content was amazing and how they presented it. And I also, at the same time, established a connection with ABA, and and their leadership there. And so a couple things sort of came together at the same time. We really wanted to partner with Bookshop. That's been a fabulous partnership with what they're able to provide to us from a sort of metadata of books, and otherwise, and then us providing back to them the channel for our users to go and purchase, and really making a national audience aware, that might not have been aware before, what Bookshop or who Bookshop is, and why
Yeah.
are they different than other places that you can go buy books from, right? So I think that was one. ABA has been a really good partner, and we've tried to really prop them up. We are talking about giving them some essentially a mouthpiece to be able to shout forward about their Indie Next list, and what
Wow.
what we can do to help out there to amplify that message. Right, USA Today's reach is a little bit wider than than ABA's, and we want to be there and help them. That's been a good partnership for us, and we will be at their Winter Institute conference next month in February. If anybody is coming, we're hosting a happy hour there, and would love to see you. And we also have our book editor is going to be on one of the panels for Winter Institute, so that should be fun. And then Novel Neighbor. Novel Neighbor, as I mentioned, I'd been following them for a little bit, and they had a very unique layer of doing these mystery boxes. And it's not saying that they were unique in that other stores aren't doing this, but I was really impressed with some of what they were doing. And it's sort of like, I call it the Stitch Fix for books, right? So really taking in like this is what people have read, and I would love to find them some new things. Can you put together a box for them? And I felt that with continuing down the road of being there for independent bookstores and otherwise, we formed a partnership with Novel Neighbor to highlight the work that they're doing around mystery book boxes and book subscriptions. We actually had we wrote an article about it was the first mystery books. It was like ordered, I want to say 2 hours after we relaunched our book list, and we relaunched the Novel Neighbor relationship at the same time. So 2 hours after we launched, I think the first order came in, and it was for a mom that had a daughter that was a passionate reader, and she ordered up the mystery box, and we actually did an article on it because it was the first one and everything like that, and just such a really cool thing to see. Of they were based. The person that bought it was based in Virginia. Novel Neighbors in St. Louis. Really would never had a connection to Novel Neighbor before, but just the creativity that was put into this box of delivering books that her daughter had not read, and just a passionate reader. It was just rave reviews back. So.
Awesome.
And I think that we've had a couple other conversations with other bookstores about, hey, could we help partner with you and amplify a unique thing that you're doing for the community that could be done at a national scale, that we could help
Wow,
go forward.
that's huge.
I think it just, again, I can't continue to speak to the volumes of what the mission was here for us, going forward.
Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit more about how the book list intertwines with the book section. But before we get to that, I want to take a step back, because we've talked a little bit about this, but we're still getting questions in the comment section about the different formats that are reporting into the sales. I'll bring up this question here from Beth Bursch. Beth Irwin asks, am I hearing this is a print-centric only data collection?
So
No, it's
no,
not
I mean,
print-centric.
it's not, and Smashboard is certainly an example of that, right? I think we are not limiting it to a particular format. I do think that, I mean, with the data that we see, speaking at a very high level here,
Sure.
we do see a lot of volume with print sales, still, and
But of course,
as
yeah.
a best-selling book list. it's our responsibility to adhere to the data that we're receiving. And so my comment earlier about us having a focus on sort of ebooks specifically, a list that is trending there and otherwise, I think that's just to call out the fact of there are I think a really strong and interesting ebooks out there that might not crack that 150, but are certainly having a strong following and strong sales that we want to be able to showcase in some manner. So no, we are not print-centric.
Okay. And along those same lines, I'm just going to bring up Steven. Steven says, hey, why do ebook sales no longer count toward a bestseller run? And from everything that we're hearing here from Erik, they do count toward the bestseller run, because you're collecting not just print book sales, you're collecting hardcover sales, ebooks, audiobooks too, Erik?
We are. Yep.
Audiobook, yeah. So all formats.
So we do, and so if there is a book that is is carried throughout all those different formats, we bring them together in our algorithm and count those as one.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you too, can you talk a little bit about how intertwined the books section content is with the bestseller lists? You mentioned that you're doing some coverage of indie bookstores out there, and you're trying to get, did you say one feature a week? That's amazing. How do you manage that? How many people are on the books team?
Well, so that comes with our partnership with ABA, right? So ABA has really helped us in highlighting a lot of unique bookstores, independent bookstores. So they put together that content. We review it from an editorial standpoint, but they're the ones really pulling some of that content together. We put together sort of a joint form that their independent bookstores can fill out and submit, and then they've been helping to package that together. I think everybody reads the news. They know that we have to be more and more we have to be very productive with each resource we have inside of the editorial division. I have to be in engineering. I have to be even more productive with every resource that I still have on the engineering side of things. So, I think there wouldn't be the time to do that if we did not have that partnership to help us, sort of pull together that content. Again, I think that we felt that was an important spider web of type of content on relaunch that was important to us to be able to have all of those. And we will be releasing. It's probably going to go live today or tomorrow. We're going to be releasing a page that pulls together, has basically a map of the U.S. and every state that we've done an article on is highlighted, and you can drill down into that state and see what articles are about independent bookstores were written about that article, about that in that given state. And I think rather than just publish a week and then it sort of disappears a little bit, we're bringing everybody back into the realm of all the different articles we've written so far, and that will continue to build as the weeks go by with that. And you asked about sort of our entertainment books, sort of traditional editorial side of things, and certainly they were the resources that are the editor and the other resources that are inside of that department. They were side by side with us as we sort of were building the engine for relaunch, making sure that we were accounting certain things as we were setting up our algorithm and otherwise. But as I mentioned, they don't do anything with the list itself. None of my team does anything with the list. Sure. It comes in through data, automated, published out. They're focused on stories that they feel have a national presence to them.
Yep.
From a USA Today standpoint. Our 200 plus local markets, they do local stories about books that might pop out, whether it's an author that, let's say we have the Austin Statesman. Let's say if there was an author down in Austin that had was getting a lot of press around a book, the local property might highlight that and write an article about that. That might then be promoted at the USA Today level, by being shared out to our USA Today property from there. So, that sort of gives you the where that editorial team sits and otherwise.
Yeah, thanks for that. And it makes me just get this huge sigh of relief to hear that the editor, the managing editor, were so closely aligned with the tech team as you were refreshing this list. Because I think we've all
Yeah.
seen, books teams sort of dwindle and sometimes go away out there.
Yeah, and certainly there was a couple very very passionate book folks inside of
Good.
our product and engineering team that helped push that along. But we could have done that without them. They were able to answer some crucial questions for us to automate. And I mentioned that we have that our books editor will be speaking at the Winter Institute for ABA's Winter Institute in February. So again, I love that she is spending the time and making herself available to that community.
Fantastic. Yeah, me too. As a matter of fact, I want to bring up this comment from our own Mark Leslie LEF, who says, I love that you're counting book sales from all formats.
Well,
Absolutely.
happy that we can get some excitement there.
Yeah, well, Mark and I are going to try to make it out to Winter Institute if we can make it out there. Something that we're looking forward to. Um, and here's a question I want to bring up from Beth Cox. Beth, you may have missed it. Beth asks, and appreciate the question, Beth. Are the sales broken out by format? A list of ebook bestsellers and print bestsellers? So we talked about this a little bit before, but do you want to clarify again, Erik, how that's like kind of a forward-looking possibility?
Yeah, so right now we don't break out, right? We have some filters in place where you can select by fiction, nonfiction as a filter, and some different genres as a filter. But we do are displaying the combined formats in a top 150 a list from a best-selling perspective. I hope to do this at some point in 24. I hope to be able to bring other lists to the table to complement our sort of flagship bestsellers 150
Mm-hmm.
list, to highlight formats or genres or otherwise that might not have been able to get to the top 150 overall, but are certainly worthy of a call out and a position on a list and otherwise. So expect more from that in 24.
All right. I love that. Before I forget to ask you, I hope I didn't ask you this question already, but with Gannett and the list and all the different properties out there, is USA Today's best-selling book list, is it syndicated to other papers around the country?
So we don't. I mean, there's a lot of local papers that will call attention to it, and we don't syndicate it for a couple different reasons. We don't syndicate it digitally because
I'm just
for most
curious. Yeah.
for most of our products, we from an SEO standpoint, right? We don't want to duplicate sort of data content that lives on one property, and then duplicate that data content on another property. What we will do is call attention to it and give that funnel of traffic into our sort of the core place where that data element lives, and in this case, on USA Today.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm going to bring up another question from one of our viewers here. Stefan asks, if you're able to answer this. Stefan asks, what are the numbers for each avenue to make the lists? That is Amazon, Apple, Google, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, print. I gather
So
that.
is that question based on like, well, how many sales do I have to make the list? I don't understand it.
That's how I'm reading it. Like, I guess how many sales I have to have at Amazon, Apple, Google, but it sounds like you're combining the numbers from all your
Yeah, that's
different
correct. And
resources.
obviously every week's different, right? So
Yeah.
where 150 is one week is different on another week. Certainly there's ebbs and flows, during the year of when book sales might be higher. Obviously leading into the holiday season, we saw an uptick, with folks buying any number of formats of books, buying those and as gifts, right? So there was a little uplift there. The summer season, I think we saw, at least certain genres really spiked high during the summer season, with what we saw there. But really, any week's different of what would what it would take, in quote, to make the top 150.
Yeah, even on our internal list here at Smashwords and some of the lists that we gather from draft digital sales, they can fluctuate wildly from one week to the next, just based on author promotions and what else is hitting the market at a particular time. So if a bookstore, if any bookstore wants to contribute sales data, what makes them eligible to contribute sales data? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly we're doing, there's a level of check that goes in to make sure they're, sort of a valid bookstore, right? And we want to make sure that we're taking in data from that side of things. And then we have a process that we go through for setting them up. We call attention to it in some of the verbiage, on the book list itself. So if you email booklist at usatoday.com, that's the email thread to get into our queue and let us start that discovery process. Once that discovery process is finished, just as we did with Smashwords, we will provide a method for that bookstore to follow a certain format that we need, a certain type of contribution layer. So email has to be structured a certain way for that to come into the system and be processed automatically.
Yeah, I would imagine when you announced the list was coming out again, were you just completely slammed with requests from booksellers?
We were in a positive way. I would have been disappointed if we weren't. But so as I mentioned at launch, there was a couple other things we had to get in place to fully automate everything. So I had to ask everybody for some patience for submitting.
Sorry,
before we had those in, but we did. We it took us a little bit, but we got out to you were one of them on the Smashboard side of things, and we sent out all the updates to everybody with how to start submitting, and now we're still getting requests every week for additions, which is great.
Well, kudos to you guys, because it's a pretty straightforward process. And originally, when you first came back to me and you're like, "Hey, thank you for your interest. It'll be a couple of weeks. We'll get back to you." I thought, a couple of weeks? There's no way they're going to be able to get back to us in a couple of weeks, because I could just feel the tsunami that was probably crushing and about to hit you and your team.
Yeah, I wanted it to be a little bit faster than it was, but I should be open that the books is not something we solely work on, right? My teams are responsible for all that we do digitally from USA Today's perspective in our local properties. So there's a lot of different priorities across the board, but we wanted to get that one across the finish line, right, to a place where it can really run itself. And that was a crucial piece. So we finally got there. We're in a good shape right now.
Okay. I want to bring up this question here from Guillaume, who asks, what is the secret ingredient for any book or ebook to make a bestseller list? And I write only fiction. That's the $64,000 question there, Guillaume. That's what we all want to know. Do you have a sense based on what you've seen, Erik?
I mean, I've seen books make the list that I was really surprised had the numbers and the following that they did, and I've had others that I fully expected to be near the top, and obviously the ones that are sitting near the top are a lot of very well known authors and books that are out there, but we've had some really unique books that have populated fairly high on our list, which I've been excited to see, because I think that just you break sort of the mainstream, the books that everybody hears about, right? You sort of break out of that and you get some really, really unique books that get out there. I don't think that I don't have a secret ingredient to pass along. I think for any book, you have to capture a sliver of fandom and a unique layer that grips readers. And a lot of the books that I get are from word of mouth, right? It said, hey, I'll talk to friends of mine, and they're like, hey, I found this book, or somebody passes this book, it was great, you should check it out. And I think that just comes to authors, not trying to sort of recreate the stories that have been out there and done several times over, but creating a unique type of a book, unique type of audience that you're looking for, and then building upon that.
Yeah, good answer. The list this is kind of a follow-up to Guillaume's question from me, but the list runs um, Monday through Sunday, or you collect data for sales that occur Monday through Sunday, correct?
Correct.
Do you have a sense of what the best day for someone who wants to hit the list? What the best day is for them to release a new book? If
So
they're
I think
expecting a
I think
spike.
I don't really have that. We don't get data broken out by day of week.
Okay.
You know, ours are, when we receive the numbers, we ask for those numbers to be rolled up for that whole time frame.
Okay.
You know, I think historically, I think as a lot of us know, you know, we see, you know, Tuesdays being a heavy day for book releases, you know, or at least, you know, touting of book releases and otherwise Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe. So, yeah, but I don't have data on saying, hey, you know, this, if a book is released this day, the sales really pop this day, etc.
Yeah, and I've heard different things. I've heard, some folks say, well, don't release on Tuesdays because that's when all the traditional publishers are releasing their big
Mm-hmm.
books. You have to compete with them. And I think there are probably myriad different formulas out there. I want to bring up this question. I don't know if you can answer it, Erik, because I feel like it's kind of encapsulates the thoughts of a lot of authors out there. But Bianca D'Arc asks, and thanks for the question, Bianca. When comparing the current list to the prior incarnation, it seems like indie authors are not really able to hit the list as easily. Do you have any idea why that is?
Well, I mean, I can speak to what we're doing now, and the fact that we've 7x'd our number of sources that we're receiving, and there's no editorial oversight on books making the list,
Okay.
and we are not. There's nothing in our algorithm that would say that we have to lean towards traditional publishers or anything like that. We're using data to drive our list. You know, our prior incarnation, you know, there was some manual actions that had to occur there, and you know, we tried to follow their methodology as close as we could. We took in a lot of feedback from our books editorial team on some considerations that we should have in an automated format. But I'm not in a position to say, you know, well, indie authors appeared more previously than they do now. You know, I could just say that we are continuously open to sources to receive, so that we're making sure we're getting the wider spectrum of data in there, and really presenting out, you know, what we believe, you know, what our algorithm says is the best selling books, you know, for that given week. And so yeah, I don't have any details or explanation why there was a perceived situation previously.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that answer. And I think that's a fair answer. And I've heard that from other authors as well. But it sounds like, well, the list is completely new. You're taking on, it's the same amount of formats. It sounds like the new list is ingesting more data from more formats than the previous list, but maybe I'm wrong about that. And I know that the list is 7x larger right now, and you're constantly adding more stores to it. Are all the same stores that had reported before, some of the bigger stores, are they all reporting to the new list?
There's
that you know
one.
of?
There's one partner of ours that we're just working through some details from from a agreement standpoint in that.
Okay.
So they are not included as of right now, but they should be included very, very shortly. And that's just some language that we have inside of our agreement with them to
Yeah.
to bring that data in. Other than that, all the sources are there, you know, that were there previously.
Okay. And we touched upon some things earlier, Erik, about what you see going forward with the new list. Was there anything else that you had or that you wanted to add about some ideas or what's coming down the pipe that people can look forward to?
Well, I think the biggest
Or,
thing is calling attention to the different types of you know, of other lists that we could call out to give attention
okay.
to. You know, I mean, sometimes I mean, as I'm sure a lot of the folks in the community here are seeing, it might be tough to crack that 150, and But there doesn't mean that there's books at 175 to 200 that aren't really good books that are really starting to really skyrocket up the charts. In a different type of format or in the indie world or otherwise. And we want to make sure we're capturing that. So I do expect in 24 that we will add additional types of lists outside of our best-selling lists to make sure that I want to bring our audience to a wider spectrum of books and lists and otherwise. And some of that we can't do in the 150 list because it is strictly best-selling, and it could be tough for some of those types of of parts of our data sphere to make it into the full 150 list.
Okay, I appreciate that. Well, I want to bring up another comment here from Mark that says this is incredibly insightful out there and it helped clear up a lot of misunderstandings. Thank you, Erik. And another comment here from Lexi who says, if I'm hearing y'all, there needs to be a bestseller after dark list. Bet you thought I wouldn't show that one. All right,
well, I'll put that one in the list, the list hopper that we'll think about doing.
Well, okay. I mean, we're gonna hold you to that, Erik. Well,
I would just say, I love hearing feedback. I try to get back to everybody that writes in to our book list at usatoday.com email address. So if there are ideas that anybody has or otherwise, happy to listen to them. We doesn't mean I'm going to be able to jump on a great idea right away, but because of all of our other priorities. But I do expect to have some advancement throughout 24. As I mentioned, we're having that the independent bookstore US map list that should go live in the coming days. And Jim, I'll shoot you a link when that does go live.
So please do. Yeah. Yep. That's a really cool project. Did you say the email to shoot any ideas is booklist@usatoday.com?
Yep, booklist. Yep, without the S.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, are we okay to share that here in the comments section? I don't want you to get inundated in your
it's
inbox.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
All right. Well, hey, I'd love to talk with you off the record about some ideas, and we can brainstorm for different things in 2024.
Well, I hope to see you in Cincinnati.
Man, we're trying to, Mark Lefebvre and I are trying to pull out all the stops to get one of us there, and we're both, trying to get there. So we would love to be there, and I think we need to be there. Keep
me up to date on that, and if anybody else is coming, our happy hour we're sponsoring is Tuesday evening, the 13th. It's right one block from the convention center where Winter Institute's at. So happy to buy anybody a beverage of their choice and some food and talk to you about some ideas. So Jim, hopefully you and Mark can make it. I would love to connect.
I appreciate that, Erik. As we wrap up today, I just want to remind our viewers if you could please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Self-Publishing Insiders. We'd greatly appreciate it because we get to go out there and invite awesome guests like Erik here to come in and tell us about what they're doing out there. Also, be sure to bookmark dddlive.com so you can see the topics and the guests that are coming for the next week, because each week we do it again. And finally, if you are an aspiring author, why not sign up for your free Draft Digital account at draft2digital.com. For all of you watching out there, thank you again for joining us. We really, really appreciate your viewership. And Erik, if you don't mind, if you can hang out in the green room for a second, I'm just going to play a quick 30-second promo spot here, and I'll meet you over in the green room. Everybody else, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you here again, same time next week. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ebooks are great, but there's just something about having your words in print. Something you can hold in your hands, put on a shelf, sign for a reader. That's why we created DDD Print, a print-on-demand service that was built for you. We have free, beautiful templates to give your book a pro look, and we can even convert your ebook cover into a full wraparound cover for print. So many options for you and your books. And you can get started right now at draftedigital.com.